Remember this conversation where I said, Christopher, what's the best part of an Oreo cookie? What is the best part of an Oreo cookie?
The middle.
The middle. That's right. So even though you have two sides of a cookie on this end, the middle part is the most delicious. Everybody wants the middle. They even made double stuff.
Yep, this is pretty much how it was growing up. Mom stayed at home with the kids while Dad wore a suit and tie and went to work. He was at IBM for 20 years until he was downsized. But now he has his own business doing taxes.
Everybody thinks that success in America is the amount of dollars that you have, and that's not true. The real true heroes are people who go to work every day and do their job and bring up their kids to the best of their ability.
I wanted to be Hulk Hogan. I wanted to be Arnold. I wanted to be Sylvester Stallone. Did you have heroes like that growing up when you were a kid?
Yeah, we did. We had heroes like Mickey Mantle, Roger Maris, but I knew I could never aspire to it because back then, you grew up, you graduated, you got married, and you had kids.
Yeah, my dad had the American dream. You know, marry your high school sweetheart, buy a house, and take your kids to see the Yankees. But things are different now, and even baseball's changed from when my dad was growing up. And now when I think of baseball, I don't think about the Babe or Hammer and Hank. I think of steroids.
This one is a monster! It is out of here!
After the strike of '94, baseball was almost dead. But then Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa started smashing home runs, racing toward the single-season record. You see, about 1,000 years ago, Babe Ruth hit 60 home runs in one season. And then when my parents were still kids, Roger Maris hit number 61. He was the home run champ for 37 years, until Big Mac came along and crushed that record with 70 home runs, and baseball was saved.
Gone! Mark McGwire, you have just broken the home run record. What are you going to do next?
We're going to Disney World!
I guess Barry Bonds wanted to go to Disney World too, because in 2001, he smashed 73 bombs to break McGwire's record. See, baseball players used to be scrawny, but now these guys were jacked, and it was cool. They started looking like pro wrestlers.
If you were to construct a home run hitter in a lab, put him together, he'd look like that.
Turns out that was kind of what was going on.
A man with ties to some big-name athletes has been charged with providing performance-enhancing drugs to the pros.
The guy with the pencil-thin mustache is Victor Conti. He used to be the bass player for Tower of Power. But when that career didn't work out, he did what any failed musician would do. He started selling undetectable steroids to athletes.
Will you name names?
Thank you. There will be a naming of names.
Conti's files named over 250 athletes, including the home run king himself, Barry Bonds. And then something even crazier happened. Jose Canseco wrote a book. The surprise wasn't that he was literate. It's what he wrote about. He said he'd been taking steroids since '86, that 80% of baseball was on the juice, and that he'd personally injected his former batch brother, Mark McGwire, in the ass.
But why, Mr. McGwire?
Do you want to know the terrifying truth?
Or do you want to see me sock a few dingers?
Dingers! Dingers!
All right. Congress wants to haul a bunch of baseball players up to Capitol Hill to talk about steroids.
In 2005, Congress spent 151 days in session. They spent 8 of those days debating steroids in sports. That's more time than they spent on national health care, why the levees broke in New Orleans, and more than ending the war in Iraq. Apparently, the United States Congress takes this whole national pastime thing kind of seriously.
I'm a baseball fan. I always have been.
Let me just start by saying that I am a huge baseball fan.
For me, baseball is not a game, it's a passion.
We have every right to be concerned that the national pastime and all that it represents has been threatened by the selfish actions of a few.
There's something simply un-American about this.
If using steroids makes the Bash Brothers un-American, what does that make the Bell Brothers?
Congressman Kanjorski, do you think that this is not a matter for the U.S. Congress to be deliberating?
I just don't think it's necessary. Why are we just going to call 7 people, and of what importance are they? In the last 52 years, we've only done it 25 times. 14 of those times were by the Un-American Activities Committee.
Are you now, or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party?
Well, sir, I'm not here to talk about the past.
I have never used steroids, period.
Did you know that other players were using steroids?
I have never seen a syringe. I've never seen steroids.
But in locker room gossip, you may not have seen it. People talk, right? This guy's doing something, that guy's doing something.
Now, Mr. McGuire, would you like to comment on that? You don't want to comment? Are you taking the fifth?
This is about values. It's about our culture. It's about who we define ourselves to be. When we want to define to a foreign country what we're about, and you're going to show a film, what would you go show?
Hey, how about Rocky IV? There's nothing more American than that. The big Russian trains in a high-tech facility with a whole team of scientists and trainers. And of course, he takes steroids. Meanwhile, Rocky's out there lifting logs, chopping wood, training in a barn, the all-natural way. Because only commies would take steroids, right? Sure, Sly. Whatever you say. Truth is, steroids were the secret weapon that helped America fight the Russians on the Olympic battlefield. And it all began here. York Barbell in Pennsylvania.
When you were an Olympic coach, did you see a lot of steroid use going on?
Much.
Yeah.
Much.
Smitty's 83. One of the old-timers. He was the coach of the Olympic weightlifting team back then.
Was it ever thought of as cheating at that point?
No. No, because we figured everybody was taking. We figured even Steven.
Smitty told me the story about how anabolic steroids were first introduced to the U.S. Olympic team. It was the late 1950s, and the Russians were dominating America in the space race and at the Olympics. But one night, the Russian coach got drunk and told the American coach they'd been injecting their athletes with steroids. The American coach raced home and developed an even more powerful steroid, specifically for Team USA. So if steroids actually helped America beat the commies, how did they get such a bad rap?
Last week, former NFL defense lineman Lyle Alzado told NBC News that steroids were the cause of his inoperable brain cancer.
How long were you on steroids?
Most of my pro career. You know, I played 16 years. And it got me where I wanted, but also got me very sick.
Lyle Alzado went from being the toughest son of a bitch in the NFL to being a sad, dying man. Everything I saw on TV taught me that steroids kill.
Some alarming news about steroid use tonight.
A drug bust in Phoenix, Arizona. Not for heroin or cocaine, but for something just as dangerous.
Health damage from steroids can include heart, joint, and reproductive problems.
This is a drug that kills.
But what happens is these retarded idiots that give us the news, these talking heads that babble on TV, give us this rhetoric that comes from not one single expert. And they say ridiculous things like steroids will kill you, they'll rot your kidneys, they'll give you cancer, they'll do all these horrible things that are just not true.
John Romano is a senior editor of a bodybuilding magazine, and he disagrees with what his media colleagues think of steroids.
Well, how come we hear constantly in the news that people are dying from taking steroids?
Show me the bodies.
Lyle Alzado.
Lyle Alzado didn't die from steroids. I trained with him for 2 years. He didn't die from steroids. I know he died from a brain tumor.
I don't know of any of my colleagues that link his central nervous system lymphoma to his use of steroids.
Dr. Charles Yasalis has published over 70 articles on the use of steroids and is one of the top experts in the world on drugs in sports.
Are steroids killing people?
Good question. They've been used in medicine since the late 1930s. I hope we haven't been purposely killing people. Can they be used safely? Yeah.
These drugs are a boon in the medical profession. They're a miracle drug for people with, muscle wasting. They are, a miracle drug for burn victims, for cancer patients, people recovering from surgery.
And for people with AIDS, like Jeff Taylor. Jeff has been fighting HIV for 25 years, and he says steroids saved his life.
Back in '92, I was down to 2 T cells and very sick. I developed PCP pneumonia. Both my lungs collapsed. I almost didn't make it. I came out of the hospital weighing 100.